Oh, I just want to say this is based on, I used to live in Germany and Holland, and I visited Auschwitz once, and this story has kind of lived with me since then, so I wrote it about a year ago since then. Okay, and then she danced. Personal space was a distant memory as everyone huddled together despite the fetid smells. People languished in their own filth, which stained clothing and floor alike. 3 days inside the train, without food or water, had taken its toll. Low moans of despair were drowned out by the cacophony of metal on metal as the miles of track were eaten up. The daily change in light, glimpsed through the gaps in panelled walls, marked the passage of time since leaving Westerbork. Then they'd kept apart, families protective of each other, fearful of everyone else, now brought together by the insults sewn roughly onto their clothing. And amongst them, one man stayed separate, an oasis in the desert of bodies, watching, ignoring, never ignored. He opened a packet from within his pocket. The noise ripped through the silence. No one moved. He took out cheese and savoured a small bite. His second bite was stopped as, from within the press of bodies, a small form moved towards him. "What's that?" a young girl asked, eyes wide, cheeks sunken hollows. Her hands clutched a pink bundle against her grime-stained dress. "It's cheese," he answered sharply, looking around the sea of faces, relaxing when he saw no one else had moved. "It's my cheese." "Can I have some?" She unconsciously reached out a small, dirty hand towards him. Her bundle slipped, falling until the laces of ballet shoes tied around her wrist halted the drop. "Are they yours?" He gestured with the cheese towards the shoes. "Papa said I could take them with me," she answered with the shadow of a smile. "They're my favourite." "You dance?" "Every evening, before my prayers, I practice." "That is a good girl," he nodded. "My daughter liked to dance too." "Where is she?" His face fell into deeper shadows. "She is gone, little one." "I can't find my papa," she said softly, looking around the still forms in the wagon. "Some of them say he's on a different train." "Well, don't worry then." He stared at her, his face still. "You'll see him soon." "I'm hungry." "We all are, child," he said, then held the cheese towards her. "But if you dance for me, if you show me what your lessons taught you, then you will have this as a reward." Without a word, she sat and pulled the small shoes onto her filthy feet. The train swayed, wood creaking, metal grinding. Moonlight streamed, sending slivers of light weaving around the shadows. Laces were tied tightly around her ankles before she stood again. And then she danced. Gaunt arms rose, sweeping in front of her with movements that were hesitant at first, but, as music that only she could hear, became graceful and assured. She dropped into a low plie before rising up and turned a slow measured circle. The pirouette finished and she paused, taking a breath, extended her arms towards the man as her body seemed to lift itself. Toes took her so meagre weight, a calf muscles straining, insteps curving, and she became on point. Her body stilled, beautiful, then stopped completely, and for a perfect moment she stood there, the ballerina she could become clearly seen. The train juddered and she fell, the moment lost. She readjusted her dress. One small hand toyed with the yellow star sewn across her heart. The man looked away, his hand mimicking her movement. He traced the swastika on his arm. Without a word, he held out his cheese, then watched as she snatched it, vanishing into the press of bodies as the train shuddered to a stop. A murmur from outside got louder. The door was pulled open. The man scurried to one side as voices shouted, demanding everyone move to the platform. When they couldn't move fast enough, hard-eyed men from outside started pulling and shoving until finally the carriage was empty, leaving only the man. He stared at the other men, who nodded back, then started pushing the people away from the train, into the night. Wiping crumbs of cheese with one hand down his trousers, the other man held the rifle that had never left his grasp. He left the wagon finally. As he jumped down, he saw a flash of colour back inside and saw the ballet shoes lying alone, forgotten. He reached to retrieve them for the girl, but, as the moonlight reflected on the sign on the platform, Auschwitz, he simply closed the door. She wouldn't need them.